Alright, hello once again. This is Jeff Scott of Rankin Technical College. And as part of the Rankin Technical College AWD, or Application and Website Development Program, and in particular the AWD 1111.NET Framework with Web Databases class, I've been going through a series of video presentations, or I've created a series in the process for the AWD 1111 class, from the textbook that we'll be using for the fall 2019 semester. The book, as you can see on the screen right here, is Pro ASP.NET MVC 5. So far I have gone through chapters 1 through 5 in a lot of detail. Had some problems with chapter 6, but did what I could. And I'm up to chapter 7 now, and I'm looking at it that basically 7 through about 13 are part 2 of the book, because they will be discussing or talking about, whatever you want to say, this Sport Store project. All right, so as we get into it, as the author says here in previous chapters, what he's done is built very, very small ASP.NET MVC apps to discuss different features, etc. But now this is going to be a more realistic e-commerce app called Sport Store. As the author says, it'll follow the classic approach taken by online stores everywhere. There'll be an online product catalog that customers can browse by category and page, shopping cart where you can add and remove products, and a checkout where you can enter shipping details. All right, there'll be an admin area that will include create, read, update, and delete, in other words, CRUD operations, for managing the catalog. All right, and it'll be protected so that only logged in administrators can make changes. So it's in several chapters, but as you can see on the top of the page right here, the goal of this chapter and those it follows is to give you a sense of what it would really be like to build your own realistic, true-to-life ASP.NET project that utilized MVC. All right, as the author says, I want to focus on the MVC framework, so we have simplified the integration with external systems such as the database and admitted things like payments. So not everything will be in here. It's not that you couldn't add that. Who knows if we would do something like that. It would all be time dependent. All right, you might find the going a little slow as we build up the infrastructure. Probably not. All right. Now, the author says that he's made a very big point out of talking about unit testing. All right, and he has included unit tests in here. We're probably not going to go through too much of it, to be honest with you. All right, most of the MVC features that are used will have their own chapters later in the book. That's what I refer to as part 3 of the book. Rather than duplicating everything here, the author will give you just enough information, as it says, to make sense for the example application, and point you to later chapters for more in-depth information. All right, so we've already got Visual Studio installed. We're going to call this Sport Store. And you know what? No matter what, whether the author does something I don't agree with or whatever, I'm going to follow his lead. All right? It says you can also download it. I'm not going to do that. I actually did and tried to run it. It came up with all sorts of errors. So I'm not going to worry about it one way or the other. All right. The author says he's tried to make the screenshots and code listings as easy to follow as possible. So to start, we're going to create a Visual Studio solution that has 3 projects in it. We have not done anything really like this before. One project will contain the domain model. One will be the MVC application. The third will hold the unit tests. To get started, as it says, we're going to create a new Visual Studio solution named Sport Score using the blank solution template. All right, so we're going to go down to Other Project Types, Visual Studio Solutions, and choose a blank solution called Sport Score. So I'm going to do a file, save all. This is from the last chapter, and a file, close solution. All right. So we're going to want to create a new project. And again, I'm hoping that somewhere in here I can find blank project, blank solution. The project name, it says there. Well, let's look one more time. The solution will be called Sports Score. So we want this to be Sports Store right there. And as always, we want to be saving this onto our desktop. Now, when I do this with the class, all right, my hope is at that time we can talk about things like version control, but I'm not talking about that or utilizing anything like that right now, okay? So, Sports Store. Create. So we've got this blank project. As you can see, there is absolutely nothing in it as of right now. All right, whoops. So we've done that. Come on. A Visual Studio solution is a container for one or more projects. Kind of like a folder, for lack of better words. We require 3 projects for the example app, as will be described on the table on the next page. You add a project by right-clicking the solution and choosing Add New Project from the pop-up menus. So here's the names. sportsstore.domain, sportsstore.webui, sportsstore.unittests. Let's add them. Same order the author has shown them here. Right mouse click. Add new project. This will be an ASP.NET, I believe at least. Let's double check and see if the author put that in here. You will use the empty option for the MVC. The other ones, well, I'll tell you what. Hold on just one second. I don't want to get too far ahead of myself here. All right, so I'm going to come in here and try to create these. You see the first one is a class library. So I'm going to right mouse click. I'm going to look in here. There's class library. Next, the name is supposed to be Sports Score domain. All right. Now on the location, well, the location should be, I don't know why it wasn't automatically inside of the project I'm working on, but we're going to see if we can fix that. All right, so we'll should know pretty fast whether or not this worked. There we go. There's our sportsstore.domain. Next, we want to have an empty application, which we're going to and choose the ASP.NET folders. Or I should say the MVC. So right mouse click on the solution again. Add new project. ASP, we don't want a core app. ASP.NET web application. Next. Again, that's sportscore.webui. That all looks good. Well, it says create here. Oh, that looks correct. Oh, there we go. We want the MVC, just the folders. It's an empty project, but we want the MVC folders, etc. So that should be the second one that we have on here. And there that is. So we've got our sports score domain, and we've got our sports score web UI. Finally, we're going to want to do unit tests. So that will be called sportstores.unittests. It'll be a unit test project, as it says, and it'll hold the unit tests for everything else that we're working on. So we want to, one more time, right mouse click on here again, choose Add New Project. You have to look, as we did before, for a unit test. There it is. Next, the name of this is sportscore.unittests. I might keep saying sports score. I'm not sure why I am. It's Sport Store. Create. Now I should have 3 projects when I get done here. Let's close that one. And there's our 3 projects. All right. So looks pretty much the same as what you see here. Okay. Now, I even before we do all this to make debugging easier, etc., I am already at, well, I'm at 11 minutes, so let's do that. To make debugging easier, right mouse click on the web UI and choose Set as Startup Project. Set as Startup Project. So that should be done. This means when you select Start Debugging or Start Without Debugging from the Debug menu, it is this project that will be started. Good. Visual Studio will try to navigate to individual view files if you're editing them when you start the debugger. So right-click the project again, the UI project, choose and select Properties from the pop-up menu. We've seen this before. Click on Web to open the web-related properties and select the specific page option. Web, and select the specific page option. I believe we don't have to set anything. There's no need to enter the value into the specific page text field. Just selecting the option is enough to stop Visual Studio from trying to guess the URL you want to view and ensure that browser requests the root URL when you start the debugger. All right, so the next thing to do is to bring up these different things from Ninject, and I'm sure hoping that that's not going to give me problems. So the author says, I will be using Ninject and Mock in this chapter. So I'm going to try to bring all that stuff up. And before I do, I'm going to create that in my next lesson.